Hello, everybody. I'm Gabrielle. Nice to meet you. Hopefully, I've met some of you guys before. Yes, so we wanted to follow up because I do believe Ian, well, he did one of our best videos so far on YouTube on Microsoft Lists, which gives a fabulous overview of all the things that you can achieve with a Microsoft list. My whole thing with Microsoft List is that, yes, out of the box, you can totally do so many things, but there are some very basic sort of things that you can begin to do to beautify your lists. You can leverage JSON formatting, which is a fancy word for just light coding through Copilot. You can also do some basic updates as well to the list to take it into something that's really quite nice to work in, as opposed to something that's a little bit clunky. So we're going to talk you through that here. All right. So to begin, I'm going to actually exit out of this for a moment and just get it out of here. Great. So to begin, I wanted to highlight one of the first features that I think is important to highlight in this space, which is, that you now have this really fabulous option to be able to leverage something called a Microsoft like form list. So let's jump in really quickly. I'm going to jump very, very, very fast into this so that we can teach you how to just begin and build a basic form list that kind of makes it all a whole bunch easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an expense submission form together. And I've already built that. I'm going to call it V2. And what essentially I'm going to do here is through this form that we're going to build, I'm going to show you how you can take a very basic sort of list that looks like this and transform it into a list that looks like this, that looks professional. But this is all based on a form list. So it begins with the way that I just showed you, which is jumping into that form builder. And from there, you want to build out your form. So go ahead, jump in, find yourself a logo, go ahead and add yourself a title. And then from there, when you're actually building out this form, this expense form, I want you to keep in mind a few things. I want you to, when you're creating your titles, I don't want you to add any spaces in them, and I'll show you why in a minute. In this case, we'll just call this your expense name. So as you can see, I don't want you to add any spaces in here, and I want you to add a new field. Now, the great thing about this form list is that you have a whole bunch of new elements that you can add, which is something that we didn't have really before. So we've got people columns that we can leverage. So I'll just put that as staff member. I'm going to now add expense type. So I'll add a choice field here. And this is where some of that beautification comes in. So expense type, no space. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you guys to leverage emojis for this one. So if you just quickly use some emojis, sorry, I mean, you might sometimes need to do a space at the end. Leverage some emojis in here to give you a little bit of that customization and gives you a little bit more of that, I don't know, gives you a bit of a nicer feel, makes it a little bit more fun to enter in. But it does help to beautify the list as well. And you can see that you have these options available to you. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to add a date field, and that'll be the date of the expense, date of expense. So you're seeing here that I'm not adding any spaces again, and you'll see why in a minute. So go ahead and add that there. And then from then on, you have this really great feature inside of here where you can add an image. So this makes it really easy so this will be your upload receipt. So this makes it really easy to add an image in and gives people the option to upload an image, which receipts are now basically all images. Oh, I shouldn't include that. And now that that's created, you have yourself a really basic business expense form that you can begin to use. So let's go ahead and copy that link and paste it in. And what I want you to do with this business expense form is add a few items. So for staff member, I might add myself here. I'll add an expense like maybe Uber Eats during trip. The expense type here will be meal. The date of the expense will be the 11th, and then I'll upload a receipt here for you. So we'll go ahead and click submit on that. Then I'll submit another response potentially. This time I'll submit it for Adele. This time it'll be, oh yeah, I've already got a few loaded here. Accommodations, so hotel in Dunedin, date of the expense on the 2nd, and then I'll go ahead and upload a receipt for that as well. Click submit. So what I've just done is I've submitted a few just very basic things relating to the list that I've just built through a form specifically. So now I have this expense submission. Go ahead and click that, and you're actually going to see that we have everything's built already. So what is it? We're just a few minutes in, and we already have submissions. We have a list, and it's automatically built. So that new list form option is really a fabulous option for you, and I do recommend that you use it. But it's kind of ugly, right? Ugly out of the box. The idea here is that we want to create something that looks much closer to this. So what I want you to do, the very first thing, if you're following along at home, is I want you to go into a list view to begin. And so that already makes things a little bit easier to view. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to group by your, in this case, we group by staff member. Perfect. And are created by we're not interested in. So we're going to hide that column. And so in this case, I can see Adele submitted one and I've submitted one. Still a little bit far off from what it looks like over here, right? So it's not totally looking the way I want it to look, but that's okay. We're going to now add a grouping header. So this is your easiest way to begin beautifying. This is where we're going to start leveraging Copilot. Copilot is really fabulous for doing like a lot of stuff that you would never really think. And this includes the free version of Copilot as well. So if you at home, if you have that ability to do a free Copilot, I'm just going to click out and click back in here so that I have a fresh view. One moment, I'm going to click new chat. There we go. If you're using the free version, this is absolutely something that you can do at home as well. So what I want you to do is take a screenshot of what you've just created. That gives Copilot a bit of an idea as to what it's working with. One thing I want you to do, sorry, quickly before that is I want you to click edit on that staff member column, and I want you to check something very quickly. This will immediately enhance the view of that, and that's show profiles. So let's go ahead and do that. So immediately now I've got the profile images of the staff members. When you're prompting Copilot to give you something like a header, I want you to say, I am a SharePoint administrator, right? That gives it its first indication of what you need. The next thing I want you to say is, I am grouping a list. I was going to say SharePoint list by staff member. Please create me a grouping header that gives me their name, their profile photo. And yeah, and then from there, it'll sort of make its own call as to what it wants to do, but base the look on the attached screenshot of the list. So I've just taken a screenshot. I'm going to drag it in here of what the list looks like. And then you get Copilot essentially to give you a grouping header. Now, it will hopefully know that it's a JSON grouping header. I guess that's important to note here. What we're going to do is we're going to leverage JSON formatting for this particular piece. And we're going to do that by formatting the view of that particular space here. And we're going to do that in an advanced mode. So let's have a look here. So it's already producing me JSON. It pretty much knows, right? It knows, and that's something that's really important. And some of you may not have already taken, the next step with JSON formatting. I don't want you to be afraid of it. This is something that you yourself have the power to work within. It's not as scary as it seems. In this case, we're going to format the view. I'm also going to show you how to format columns as well. So formatting the view, clicking advanced mode, and then from there, we're going to take what they provide us and we're going to go ahead and put it in. Now, the one thing they don't have here is an understanding of the exact name of the column that we're referencing. So what I'm going to do is quickly update that. So I'm just going to go back to Copilot and say, please note that the internal name Because remember, we didn't add any spaces between any of the expense form titles, right? So that created an internal name that's completely reliable. We can literally look at that. We know that's the internal name. Please note the internal name of the column is staff member, like that.
I
And
think
it will,
that's quite important, isn't it? Because
it is, yes.
if you have spaces, sometimes it replaces it with like %20, which is like the URL encoded version of a
Yeah,
space. Sometimes it removes the space. Sometimes you can add underscores and things like that. But
that's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
just
That's really important. And so the way that we created that form, please follow it to a T, making sure there's no spaces. And then what you have there is the exact internal name. You never have to go and look for it. So now it's produced me JSON formatting for a view, group header JSON. And it says here, format current view, right? Group header, great. So it's exactly what I need. And it's given me the JSON coding. I don't want you to be afraid. Trust me, if I can do it, you can too. I learned doing Microsoft entirely on my own. And I think Ian is self-taught as well. They always add those two at the end, so you just have to remove that. So let's see what it's produced. Yeah, let's see what it's produced in preview. Okay, so that's not working. So when things don't work, that is totally fine. You can go back to say this is not producing. And then from there, it will sort of, you can work with that formatting to get it to where it needs to go. A lot of the formatting that I do is, working inside of Copilot to get it to work. In this case, I know that I have a really great format in this particular view that I've been working on and that I've had it produce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to bring it over. Let's have a look here. Got it. When Groupy does not produce it, always one of these. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this one over here and just quickly have a look at what it's currently referencing. I'm just going to search for staff member. Let me see if it's even pulling staff member in any way. Let's go ahead and have preview and see. There we go. So it's working over here. Now, I do like to use some JSON formatting that I personally love, and we were sort of thinking we might post a bit of a blog post on some good JSON formatting that you can use, including I have this particular toggle that I've perfected over the years that I do think is the perfect inline toggle on a SharePoint list. And I think I want to share that secret sauce with you long term because it is honestly the best inline toggle. It's sort of the perfect size, the perfect shape, and it's something that you yourself could easily leverage. I'll show you how easy it is to leverage by putting a yes, no column here. I'm going to call this reconciled, important because that's what I've named it here, and a default to no. I'm going to click save on that. And then inside of here, where did it go? There it is. I'm going to just click format this column and you'll see it transform into a great inline toggle that I love. This is I don't know, it's perfection on ice, man. This is the best. But yeah, so this inline toggle will definitely post on the blog for you that formatting so that you could just as easily add a reconciled toggle for you as well. Now, just something to note is that in the way that you'll see that I've actually got reconciled already listed in here, but it's as simple as taking something like this for your particular, whatever the name of your column is, plugging it into Copilot and saying, can you please update the column title, always spell it with 2 L's, from reconciled to insert the name of your column, the internal name of your column, to whatever, let's say to staff member, and plugging it into Copilot, and it will literally replace it for you. So Copilot, even the free version, is fabulous for this kind of thing, for really helping us produce and do some of that work that will really help you to leverage and make that list just that much better.
so I'm a little bit old school, Gabrielle, and I wrote JSON before we had Copilot. So I think sometimes it might be actually just quite good. Can you just expand it out just so we can see it and you can
This
actually
one
just
here?
see well, even in the list itself, but
Oh, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, so just expand that.
This?
Yeah, drag the whole window open. On the left, you could drag it, and
Oh,
then
I didn't know that.
we can
Top
see a little
tip.
bit more. Yeah. So you can see that it's referencing the dollar reconciled field. So every field within that JSON has a dollar in front of it. And it's wrapped in square brackets. So wherever you're looking at that JSON, you know that's where it's referencing the field. At the moment, you are doing column formatting. So that's referencing like you're
This needs a
manipulating
little
this
bit more.
current column,
That's
but
right.
you can actually reference other columns as well. So you could say,
Yes,
well, I want to look at another column, and if something else changes in another column, and I think you're going to cover that shortly, but you can expand that window out. You can even click preview, right? So if you're making changes to the JSON, you can
that's
preview it.
right.
So you don't have to commit the change.
That's right.
You make some
Yeah.
changes and
So
see what it does.
that's right. Yeah, in advanced mode. Yeah, there you go. So like that's an example of preview right there. So we'll click save on that. And it's always important, I think it's important to note, just save view as to make sure that you've now saved that particular view. What he's just talked about is referencing another column for updating something here. And so in this case, let's say we added receipt total here. So that might be a currency field. Let's go ahead and add that in. So I'll call that receipt total. Great, perfect. Yep, I'm happy with that. And let's say I wanted to start adding a little bit in as to like what he was talking about. So let's say the receipt total here is 500. And the receipt total here was 250. Great,
That's an
exit
expensive
preview.
Uber Eats order. Yeah.
Oh man, that was a massively expensive one. Hopefully I don't get flagged for it. Yeah, so if we want to, let's say, like something that I did that I thought was like just really great. I took this formatting, right? Because I really liked it. And I said, based on, sometimes I like to start a new chat just to keep it clean. I am a SharePoint administrator, always starting with that. I would like to copy, we'll say here, the pill format from this JSON to a new currency column. Please produce me JSON for this. And then I just feed it what it is that I would like working on here. There you go. This might, like I said, my secret sauce. This is like some people have like a secret like mayo sauce, but I like have my secret toggle recipe, my coding toggle recipe. But it will literally produce me something that looks just like it for a currency column. And it's a little bit more simple, but let's have a look at what it produced there, right? So advanced mode, let's have a look at what that looks like here. All right, so it's looking for an internal name, and we know that that is receipt total. Great. And it's looking for that every time here. So it's actually, you can see it's actually prompting me ahead of time. And I think, well, is that not enough? I'm just letting know my internal name is receipt total. Just to let it know what it is that you are looking for in this particular instance. Now, Copilot will always take a little bit of time, but we'll go ahead and cancel that for now. What we've showed you so far are just basic ways to sort of beautify a list and begin to step into a little bit more of that JSON formatting. If you're willing to sit with Copilot producing you these sort of options, uniform size for every row. I like that. Perfect. Let's go ahead and see. Let's go ahead and see if that works. This is a little bit of trial and error. You know, a lot of this is being willing to see sort of what is it doing here? If receipt null, receipt total to string, receipt total. In this instance, I'm going to just jump over back to this one here, and I'm going to pull this receipt total here. I'm going to format this column and pull this one over here, just to begin to show you a little bit as to what we're doing. There we go. Let's preview that. So I think my if reconciled is true, great. Just looking through that. Sometimes what I do when things aren't totally like stacked, oh, that's right, because I've got this receipt total here. So I want this to be updated to receipt total. You're just sort of looking inside of this and you're figuring out if you need to update any of these fields here. There we go. And then the preview begins to show. there. So when you start to get something that works, you can start to ask it to do a few more things, right? You could ask this to show a green instead of, in this case, a green when it turns to toggled, right? Or not. And the way that I got that to work in that way was very simple. It was by just asking asking Copilot to update the JSON for when reconciled equals true. Can you update this coding on this pill to turn to green? That's the kind of thing that you can begin prompting Copilot to do. It does take a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of effort, but it's absolutely something that you yourself can begin to work with. Another thing that you might want to do is you might want to format the look and feel of your expense type column here. This is something that I did. I wanted to take my expense type. I just went into Copilot for this one and I said, I have a choice field. I want to increase the size of the text. Please produce me a JSON to do so. And then it would produce me sort of a basic JSON to begin updating the field that I needed. It always takes just a little bit of time, but what you'll see here is that I increased the size, and so that it just made it a little bit easier to read. And it ended up being something that I felt just fit a little bit better. It then updated as well the form too. So once you start updating choice fields inside of a space, you'll see that this now updates too. And so the nice thing about building it as a form is that you already have that inbuilt updating. And really what we're showing you are things that are helping to elevate that list without any Power Automate. So you're not actually jumping in, creating any flows. You're not doing anything that requires you to know anything a lot more sort of superior in terms of your knowledge. It really is just beginning to leverage that Copilot license that's built into your general license, right? Your general Microsoft license, whether that be free or paid. This works very, very well on the free version. And then from there, it continues on. So you start to build that proficiency, that ability to manipulate. You can start adding, for example, calculated columns as well through basic JSON formatting, but that would be more so in the back end. So if you wanted to add, for example, a GST calculation column, one of the things that's a little bit of a step up, or a way that you can leverage the next level, is by going into your list settings and creating a calculated column. This is also something you can do without the need to really know any Power Automate. A calculated column is available to anyone who's creating a list. You can decide that you want a GST column here, and you might go to Copilot, and you might say, I would like a calculated column formula that calculates 15% of the receipt total currency column. And then Copilot typically begins to know sort of what it is that you're looking for. So receipt total times 15. So if I push that in to my space, I also know here, just as a quick reference, that I have receipt total here, and it's important that I use that one in particular. So that then provides me my formula. I go here to currency as my output, and I want to add it to my default view. And jumping back into that there, I now have 15% of my GST of that receipt total that automatically calculates.
So
These are
you could
sort of
actually you could actually build on that as well, right? You could have a yes no column that is, well, did this include GST? And so if yes, then calculate the GST. If no, make it 0%. So you can make those calculated columns quite complex.
That's right. Yeah, which is what I did. Which is what I did here inside of this space. So as you start to build it out, yes, it will take a little bit of time to sit with Copilot and to learn to understand sort of how it's producing. But ultimately, you can begin to leverage not only backend list settings, but also leverage things like JSON formatting inside of a view, Remember, we covered that. Leveraging JSON formatting inside of a column. We did that here. And then you can also, as I showed you in the last one, begin to jump into the back end of your list. So we're heading here to list settings. And here is where you're adding your calculated columns. You also have the power to edit views in this space as well. And this is also where you find, if ever you're in need, this is a top tip, ladies and gentlemen. If there's something you remember and you take home, it's this. If you ever need that internal name of that column, click into it from here. And this is your internal name of that column if you ever need it to plug into Copilot to produce you something for JSON. And as you can see, I did it incorrectly this first time around, and it produced a whole bunch because there was a space here that I added in my form between receipt and total, and that's what it ended up building into it. So that list settings space becomes really useful there as well. So it is very possible for you to create a list form that automatically takes submissions that then you can begin to beautify. And over time, with a little bit of Copilot work, a little bit of patience, and maybe a special sauce recipe for a toggle, an inline toggle. And potentially, I might even share as well the perfect grouping header for a people column. Who knows? I always loved this when I started out. I loved having some JSON formatting that I knew I could fall back on. And this particular toggle has been one that I've taken from place to place because I love it. And it's so useful across so many things. Stay tuned because we do want to potentially build on this to, for those of you who are willing and wanting to jump into Power Automate. We're very interested in showing you how you can begin to leverage this toggle for more than just changing the color of a pill, but potentially automatically sending an email without ever having to open an item or edit it or even open Outlook. This is absolutely a toggle that can automate your basic tasks in the space using Power Automate.
I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I just wanted to just make sure that we do cover just about list permissions and some security.
Yes.
We only have 2 minutes, and I just spent, was it 45 minutes talking about it at the DWC conference, but we can try and boil that down to 2 minutes. But ultimately, we just got to be careful with list data, who has access to it, and what kind of potentially sensitive information you're going to capture within that list. So just keep that in mind. What I do really like about the form that Gabrielle just showed is you can actually separate that from the list. So you can create the form and give that to anyone in the organization. You don't have to give them permissions to the list at all. You just give them the form. They could fill in the form, submit it, and you could capture the data inside the list. So that's one way of creating some control. But you can imagine even just this process for expense claims, right? You're going to want to route it through management, even site managers, regional managers, then to finance. So you build that routing. At that point, you're handling who can access and who's got the permissions to edit it all the way through that approval cycle. So it can get very complicated very quickly, but for just internal use lists, it's a brilliant use case. So yeah. Awesome. Thanks very much, Gabrielle. That's really cool.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
I'll just double check if we've got any questions. Feel free to fire any questions through. We'll stop the recording at this point. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, then feel free to fire them through. Oh, Joe's just reminding me. Could you just share the next webinar topic?
Yes.
Is if you just bring up that slide.
Yes. Where did it go? I've got this. This one here. This is what I want. Sorry, guys. There we go. We're here.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. So there's been heaps more changes with Copilot. So as always, this is going to become a fairly regular topic for us, right? So we're going to do another Copilot update. That is due on Wednesday, the 6th of May. It's in our newsletter, so people can subscribe through our newsletter, but also you can use that QR code. So all of those new features between our last update and this next one, there's going to be a heap more before May anyway, so we'll keep you up to speed. So yeah, that's coming up. And I'm just going to double check. I think we've got some...
Oh, we've got some questions.
Okay. Yeah, can't wait to play with the pill toggle. Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh my God, guys, I love the pill toggle. It's such a secret sauce. It's like the best recipe.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. It's 12 o'clock. Have a nice lunch and enjoy the sunshine while it's out.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.